he's had on the Gulf Coast.
I was very unhappy, very self-conscious. I wasn't smiling anymore. I'm covering my mouth.
She was wearing a surgical mask at work just to hide the fact.
Good morning, all. Alright. So, well, we got CNBC on commercial right now. Some stocks that I am looking at big time this morning are BBIG, SPRT, CLVS, ATER, MMAT, and CRCT, as well as AMC, NVIDIA, NVDA, and you got a few others too that we'll get into. Alright, tropical storm. Now, supposedly already wiped out power in New Orleans. Terrible. So, we got futures up. S&P, SPY's about to open up at all-time high. NASDAQ, again, absolutely insane. We just keep on going higher and higher. So, we'll come back to this. Let's get into the SPY. So, SPY, we have hitting all-time highs pre-market. $450.87 at there right now. Will it open higher? Definitely a high possibility as we zoom out on the weekly chart. Now we see it's holding that strong support line of just the 5-day moving average as well as the trade line, right? So that's something to watch, as if we break that trade line, I mean, we're looking at these price lines of 440, 427, and even 420. And as we break those support lines, that will just show the true test of how far and low we will actually go. So from the daily, you see we have a consistent pullback with a follow-up of a green day. So that's another thing to watch. Now, this is the daily, this is the weekly. So, as this trend of the dip is always being bought, how high and how far are we willing to go before this right now. Here, I'll just draw a little line real quick. Now we're just upwards, right, like that. So we're pushing all-time highs, and if this trend keeps on following, we're gonna have a nasty pullback again down to like the 440 level. So how high are we going to go before we have that pullback? And no one knows. I mean, as long as everything is going up, I mean, no one will know when we actually have that pullback. And then looking at the triple Qs, again, opening up at all-time highs, as we just seem to defy all the fundamentals in this market right now. So I mean, so far the high was 376.85, but it's going to open at an all-time high. Now again, let's look at the daily and the weekly. Again, with the pullback, every pullback has been bought, but this one was a little bit deeper than the previous pullback, right? So be mindful that this touched the 20-day moving average, and that's something it hasn't done for quite some time. As you can see, the last time it actually like really touched it was back in June. But then ever since that, we broke up, and that was at what, 330? Yep. And now we're pushing 376, 377. So I mean, that's a nasty upwards move in a matter of a month, right? So that's just something to be cautious of on the pullbacks. And then as we zoom out a little further on the weekly, you see the same thing. I have price lines as where support is the strongest at the moment. And if we have a pullback that breaks this trade line right here, we're definitely looking back at touching either the 20-day moving average or even lower at that price line right there. And then as you can see, it's just lower and lower. But as long as there is no taper and Fed is staying loyal to making people rich, then nothing is to worry about in the near term. But now let's get into some stocks. So we have AMC. AMC was making bullish moves. Alright, so looking at AMC, right? Let's zoom out. You got this weekly chart. Last week we made a bullish move upwards, right? Breaking out this bullish pennant. But so far, we'll see where this week takes us. Why? Because if we can't hold and get past this 46 level to like that $50 range, back to where we were in July, then momentum might be lost. But I mean, it's pushing higher pre-market, so that's a good thing. Showing momentum is somewhat bullish right now. Still have an hour and 21 minutes to go, but this weekly time frame chart is definitely showing the true support and where we're going. As the 5-day and trade line cross that 20-day, well, actually the candle pushed past that. Now that level, like I said, from the weekly, we gotta get to that 40 or above that 46 level to that 50 level and hold that. If we hold that 50 level, that's going to signal a great bullish sign of momentum, because that's, I think, when the big players, aka the whales, would jump in. And if we get back to there, then we'll definitely be pushing back up to where we were the previous time in June, with that little short squeeze, gamma squeeze, a little bit of combination. So As you can see, the daily, right? The daily, we broke out of it, right? On the Monday, right? Mondays have been, or was that Tuesday? Tuesday, sorry. So last Tuesday we broke out of that resistance line, and then we kind of came back downwards like it was a false breakthrough. But then we actually held support at that $40 range. So that's a good sign of resistance becoming support up here. So as we're pushing higher, I mean, we really got to look for that $41 range, and then obviously, like I said, that $46 to $50 range this week. That is going to be a key indicator of more people coming in and just the momentum pushing upwards. So that's definitely something to look out for as we head into the new trading week today. And you can see right here, I mean, $40.97 looks like we're going to be pushing a little bit higher, possibly open above $41. I would like to see that today. Now let's get into some stocks that I'm watching today and throughout this week as well. One, BBIG. Now this was making nasty moves earlier this morning. Alright, so on this daily chart, last Friday we had a big move upwards. It opened up at $3.53, hit a high of $5.97. So that's a big move. And now, looking at the weekly, right? So we had resistance at, let's say, $5.20. Obviously, we're gapping up today this morning, looking at $8.70. Now it did hit a high of $10.59, so that is big. Why? Because any pullback, I would say, to around this $7 range, really, right? Because this is where the after hours stopped on Friday, and I mean, don't get me wrong, the pre-market, after hours market volume is always a little skeptical, but you just got to be able to tell on the candles, right, how to read a chart. I mean, the volume really doesn't mean that much depending on which way it's going, because it could be a trap, it could be a fake out. The stock could be pushing lower like it has since $10.59, right? But what it do? It came all the way back to test pretty much the previous high, which is that $7.85, right? But it actually came lower, went to $7.60, and then now we see it pushing back up. So that's a good sign. And then the momentum is going upwards, and I just realized this is a 3-minute instead of 5-minute. 5 minutes is used to identify the trends, as 3-minute is for me to be able to identify the momentum. So yeah, so here you see that nice little green candle. We have this stop out right here coming back down to test that previous high on Friday before the close on 8 p.m. And then since then we've been pushing up, recapturing that trade line, and it looks like we're going to maybe push higher. Now the key is to look to recapture that $9 mark. If we recapture that $9 mark, we'll definitely be pushing up higher, hopefully testing $10.59 before the opening. That will be a key indicator of a huge push up higher, as this already had a massive move on Friday. So I'm definitely looking into this. I have full disclosure, this isn't financial advice, this is financial education, but I do have 2 call options being on a buy limit, so that is going to be a very interesting play. As I said, looking for this to push up to $9 and then obviously push back to the highs and even higher. Now another stock that I actually rebought back into Friday after missing out is SPRT. And we are gapping up today, folks. Looks like the squeeze is not fully over yet. Whew, what a nasty move. Look at that. Look at that weekly chart and even daily chart. Oh my goodness. It's just screaming make some money. But you really gotta be careful because this is not a normal play at all. This is absolutely bonkers. I mean, it's pushing not $39, closed at $26. So I rebought in at $27. It closed at $28 in the after market on Friday. So I mean, I was able to gain, and obviously still gaining on it as it's pushing higher. So as we're looking at the 15-minute, right? So 15-minute, we came down and we retested that previous high from that after hours market before we started pushing even higher, right? So that was about what, $29.28, and that's, I mean, we closed a little lower, right around the lower end of the VWAP, which it's okay, but the fact that we held that and consolidated throughout the after hours market, and now obviously today pre-market we're pushing higher, that's signaling a still bullish behavior. So it's not something that is normal to see a stock shoot up that much in a given day, obviously, especially on a red candle. But all you just got to take into consideration is your risk, because you don't want to have your emotions fuel your trade or whatever you're trying to do in terms of trading stocks, options, and even Forex, anything really. So SPRT is definitely on my list, as like I said, I already bought in on Friday again. So let's get into another one. MMAT. I gotta really start hiding my my limits, huh? Every single stock that I'm pulling up. Now this is another potential short squeeze that I tweeted out this morning, as it has been pushing higher each day. MACD extremely bullish, pushing up higher, as yeah, it's below that negative, but we are pushing higher, signaling a bullish outbreak, hopefully on the daily chart. And as you can see, 30-minute chart, right? We hit a high on Friday of $4.55. And as you can see, we broke past that in pre-market, pushing higher on the 30-minute time frame. As you can see, the weekly is a nasty chart, as this is from June. So in June, hit a high of 21.76. Now, if we want to really zoom out right now, let's so we got a high resistance at that $7 mark. But if we break that $7 mark, I mean, we're looking at pretty much $10 right off the bat. That'll be a huge run up if a short squeeze definitely comes into play here. But on the weekly chart, it's still bearish, but you can see the RSI is pushing up higher, as it was consolidating around the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then we had that nice little outbreak last week. It was really on Friday, but that's just signaling some bullish behavior And to me, like I said, this is a short squeeze watch, so I'm looking at everything before I get in. Even on the 15-minute, we had a nice cup and handle. After hours, it opened up bigger and just kept on pushing up. So right now, looking for a pullback probably to about $4.87 before it breaks that $5.20 mark. Now, this is definitely something that is kind of high risk. Low risk, high reward at the moment. Because, don't get me wrong, everyone's cash flow is different. But if you have $100, why not give it a shot? What is that, 20 shares at this point in time? But if it pulls back to under 5, you're looking at you can even buy 35 shares around that with $100. But now looking at the weekly chart, if the short squeeze does come into effect, now as you can see, right, it had this massive run up right here. So if this short squeeze does come into effect, then that $100 or 20 shares, right, at $5 will go to, let's say, $20 for easy math, right? And then your value of that stock is what? $2,000. So the fact that it's only that much, it's money, right? You're profiting, and it's all from hitting a button, being able to understand what is moving with the stock price and understanding those technicals. So that's just some little advice on how to make a quick dollar. Now let's look at another one, ATER. So this made a nasty move this morning at 8 o'clock, I think, 7 o'clock, sorry. 7 o'clock, this made a nasty move. And now it had a nice little pullback right on the 30, and you can see it tested that 5-day moving average. Now we have a green candle showing bullish momentum upwards. But as we zoom out, you tell this chart's kind of tough. But if you go back to February, this stock had a massive run up to $48.99. Let's call it 49. Now that's absolutely insane. But ever since then, it's been on a downtrend. And then last week, it had a nasty move up. After market hours, it closed around, I think, $7, somewhere around there. And then this morning, $7.30, around there. And then this morning, it just took off at 9. So right now, I would say it's kind of at its pullback consolidation. And if we break down, we're obviously going back to the high 7s. But if we don't break down, we're pushing higher and definitely going to open around that $10 range. So this is another short squeeze play. As you can see, a 15-minute chart is a nice chart pushing upwards. RSI is slightly overextended. The MACD is super bullish, as you can see, making higher highs and higher lows, pushing up higher and higher. So that's a good sign for the bullish momentum to keep on continuing. And as I'm talking, you see that it's pulling back and testing on that 15-minute, the 5-day moving average. So this is how you find that momentum when you're zoomed out on the other time frames. So that's also another one. Now let's go into Alright, so AMC EMC is at 41. That's good news. What's SRP? 37. Wow. Came right back down. Now root is another play in effect that I am looking at. And this is pushing higher, folks. This is definitely, this might be the running candidate. So we closed at 640 and we're definitely gapping up today. Now this is where like risk comes into effect because you zoom out on the longer time frames. It's a terrible, terrible chart. And that's why this is a high risk, high reward type ordeal. So we're looking up, gapping up about $2 higher than Friday's close. Any pullback, I'm looking to test that $7 and pretty much 70-cent range. So I would keep eyes out on that. Wow. Let's see what CNBC's got. And then we'll check back in about 2 minutes.
CEOs stepping in with big shoes to fill and a lot of doubters standing there. And Tim Cook is the best example, but Bob Iger's not bad either. You know?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true too.
All right, when we come back, the big takeaways from Fed Chair Jay Powell and why Friday's jobs report could be a deciding factor for the taper timeline. We've got that coming up next. Stick around.
All right. So as you can see, futures up. S&P plus 4.25. Dow up 17, and Nasdaq up 16.25. All right. Lovely. Another commercial. Alright, actually, let's look at NVIDIA. Oh, hit a high of 228, consolidating right now. I like the looks of that, as NVIDIA is really the gift that keeps on giving. And it is, so we have a pullback, and you can see it dipped to about 225 on the 30-minute candle not too long ago, and now it is up around that 227.40 range. So it seems like that's acting as support, which was the previous day's high, right? Around that range, that's where it is at now. Yeah, 227.45, but it's a dollar range right there. So that's a good bullish sign right now in the pre-market hours, as right now the weekly, RSI slightly overbought on the weekly. As you can see, it hasn't had a red candle right there. So it was 3 weeks red candle, 2 weeks, but the stock has been it actually pushed all-time highs just last week, since hitting all-time highs 4 weeks ago. Yeah, then July 5th, and then having a pullback past 2 weeks, and then boom. So that's signaling a great sign for bullish behavior. And the options market with NVIDIA is also a key variable as well to keep on pushing it higher. So I really want to check out SPRT. Wow. So we got market open in an hour. Looks like it's going to be a great green day, but be wary and be cautious of what you are doing. As this is looking like it's going to have a serious monster move once market opens, but after that big move last week, I don't know. I mean, it went from 15 to 20, right, and then opened at $38 and hit a high of pretty much, let's call it 60. That's the nastiest move that I've seen. Yeah, so this market is not like any other market, which you have to be mindful about too. It's a type, I mean, you might get in and get out, and then you missed out on profit, but you still profit, or you get in, and then you think it's gonna go, and then that slight pullback happens. So what I'm really going to be focused on is any slight pullback and bearish behavior as we are pushing all-time highs. And now let's see CNBC right now. Let's see what they got to say.
And of course, Hurricane Ida, it's hard to get electricity or have electricity be taken away from 1 million people and not have an impact on the jobs numbers, at least short term. That'll show up in October. The risk of the economy still faces challenges from policy, and the virus could be among the reasons Powell said tapering could happen this year, but leaned against several of his committee members who said outright they want the taper to begin in September. Krishna Guha from Evercore ISI writes, Powell's widely awaited Jackson Hole speech was optimistic, dovish, even defiantly so in places, and made no effort to keep a September taper decision, with policy characterized as well-positioned at present. This is risk-friendly, plain and simple. So we'll be looking for the Delta variant impacts this Friday, especially in the leisure and hospitality numbers. We've had several major events canceled, and the high-frequency travel data has gone sideways. That could make it difficult for this September payroll report to meet the standard of substantial further progress that Powell and the Fed have set out to announce a taper, Joe.
All right, Steve, stick around. Thanks. Let's bring in Allianz and Gramercy advisor, Mohammed Al-Aaron. He's also the president of Queen's College in Cambridge and a Mets fan, which is I feel bad for you. But Mohammed, you have thought for a while, I think, although they did okay. I think they won yesterday. You have been thinking that the Fed's behind the curve for a while, haven't you? Did you feel better after what you heard last week?
I did not, Joe, and good morning. I did not because while Chair Powell acknowledged two things, one is what's been happening on the ground, including inflation that's persistently higher than what the Fed expected, and secondly, the movement among the FOMC to an earlier taper, he packaged his expectation in a very dovish tone, and the market got it.
31 record closes, folks.
He stressed that we still have a way to go on the employment side. He said as well,
31 record closes in 2021. You know how absolutely insane that is? S&P and NASDAQ up 6 of the 7 past days. Yep, last Thursday was the first in 5 days that they both saw a red day. And the dip was bought. Yeah, so there's only 3 FOMC meetings left in the year. So who knows if they'll actually come out and say tapering will begin in September when that meeting happens. Now that's something that's very very high to watch out for, because that could definitely signal something around the markets, and I'm not exactly sure when that meeting is. Whoa, boy. But it is in September, so it's coming up very shortly. And I think we had pending home sales come out this morning. Oh, it comes out at 10, so that's something to look out for, as that's just going really, I mean, it's about the housing market, lumber, and construction workers, right? So home builders. So that's really all that number is when you're looking at it. So futures are having a slight pullback right now. As you can see, it definitely had a huge, not a huge drop off, but I mean Dow Jones, that was like, what, that was 17 points, and the S&P was about 3 points higher. So that's definitely something to look out for as futures jump around. Very, very volatile. But it looks like it's going to be a very, very great day. So let's get these chumps off, and I'll bring them back on if there is anything to talk about. So SPRT pushing back up to that $37 level. As I said, this is a high risk, high reward type ordeal. That nasty move last week pushing the $59.69. I mean, like I said earlier, it's screaming make money since last Thursday, but with that nasty pullback, and then you could see from Friday we consolidated at that previous high in the aftermarket hours since that nasty move. So to me, that signals strong support at this, and in after hours I actually rebought back in like I previously stated. So I am up right now, but this is something that I'm not going to take very lightly, as in risk. If I see this drops to 33, I'm out. This is for financial education, so that's my interpretation of this chart. Now let's take a look at what I think is going to be the big play, BBIG. I mean, even after last week's nasty move upwards, I still think this didn't even start. Everything's at a record high right now. I'm not talking about this stock, I'm just talking about in general, futures pushing upwards. So we got BBIG pushing up higher at $8.59. So you could see on the 30 and 15 minute chart. So on the 30-minute chart, we touched that $7.65 range, but we held that pretty much low $8 range of the 10s. So that signals somewhat of support in these after hours market. And as time is winding down for the open, I could only see this pushing to $10.59 or even higher. So this is definitely my big watch, as I forgot to even mention one of the biggest insider buys of last week is this stock. Oh, folks, that'll be a nasty move if it retouches that. But this had, since last Monday, this stock had insiders buy at least 5% of the stock since the start of last week. So to me, that's signaling maybe something they know that we don't, is a merger coming up. I didn't see anything about a merger, but I mean, there's something that they know that we don't, or that I don't at the moment. So as you can see, trying to fill this gap down previously, right? So if we fill this gap down, which we're about to open at 31, right? So that's going to be right around here, which is a good sign for that big bull move upwards. And that to me is signaling a pretty strong move. And I don't know about how high the short squeeze could happen here, because this is another play for a short squeeze effect. Short interest very high, and as you can see, there's a nice head and shoulders pattern right here. And once it shows that reaction, right, you want to get out as it's consolidating, and you had a nasty move downwards in pre and after hours, pushing that stock all the way back down to that 26 level, which from the weekly chart is support. So right here you see support levels at that, and if we recapture that 20-day moving average, push into that 50-day moving average, we could look to test that $40 range, that resistance up here, the high 38s to $40 range. That's definitely going to be something that I look out for. Alright, so that's all for today. I hope you learned something when it comes to some short squeeze plays on how volatile and risky it could be, and kind of the price points on what you should be looking at when it comes to certain indicators and technicals, because you don't want to get caught holding the bag at all. The goal is to make money, not to lose money, right? So thank you all for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day.